Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We just pause and we acknowledge and honour the traditional custodians of this continent. In First Nations, we recognise the longest living cultures on Earth and the people's continuing connection to these lands, waters and culture. We pay our respect to their elders, past, present and future, and we stand with First Nations brothers and sisters committed to working for equality and justice for all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I ask the readers, we have to wait for
No music.
yes.
الله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون. نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون. نزلا من غفور رحيم. نزلا من غفور رحيم. ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين. ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. وما يلقاها إلا الذين صبروا وما يلقاها إلا ذو حظ عظيم. وإما ينزغنك من الشيطان نزغ فاستعذ بالله إنه هو السميع العليم.
Of my soul. Ooh.
Thou art my highest aspiration. Oh my God, oh my God, ooh, ooh. My heart is wedded to none save thee, and such as thou dost love. I solemnly declare my life and death are both for thee. Ooh, they are for you. My heart is wedded to none save thee, and such as thou dost love. I solemnly declare my life and death are both for thee. Ooh, they are for you. They are for you. For you. Oh my God, there is no one but thee to allay the anguish of my soul. Ooh. Thou art my highest aspiration. Oh my God, oh my God, ooh, ooh.
In thine esteemed letter, thou hast inquired which of the prophets of God should be regarded as superior to others. Know thou assuredly that the essence of all the prophets of God is one and the same. Their unity is absolute. God the Creator saith, there is no distinction whatsoever among the bearers of my message. They all have but one purpose. Their secret is the same secret, to prefer one in honor to another, to exalt certain ones above the rest is in no wise to be permitted. Every true prophet hath regarded his message as fundamentally the same as the revelation of every other prophet gone before him. If any man therefore should fail to comprehend this truth, and should consequently indulge in vain and unseemly language, no one whose sight is keen and whose understanding is enlightened would ever allow such idle talk to cause him to waver in his belief. Baha'u'llah, The Gleanings. There is no compulsion in religion. The right way has been distinguished from the wrong. And whoso believeth in Taja and believes in God, he has got hold of the firm handle in which is no breaking off, but God both hears and knows. The Quran.
The measure of revelation of the prophets of God in this world, however, must differ. Each and every one of them hath been the bearer of a distinct message, and hath been commissioned to reveal himself through specific acts. It is for this reason that they appear to vary in their greatness. Their revelation may be likened unto the light of the moon, that sheddeth radiance upon the earth. Though every time it appeareth, it revealeth a fresh measure of its brightness, yet its inherent splendour can never diminish, nor can its light suffer extinction. Baha'u'llah Gleanings. Verily, the true religion in God's sight is Islam, and those whom the book was given disagree. Not until after that there was given to them knowledge through the mutual envy. But whoso disbelieves in God's signs, truly God is quick at reckoning up. Say, we believe in God and what hath been revealed to thee, and to what was revealed to Abraham and Ishmael and Isaac and Jacob and the tribes that was given to Moses and Jesus and the prophets from their Lord. We will make no distinction between any of them, and we are unto him resigned. Whosoever craves other than Islam for religion, it shall surely not be accepted from him, and he shall in the next world be of those who lose. The Quran, Surah 3.
The prophets of God should be regarded as physicians, whose task is to foster the well-being of the world and its peoples, that through the spirit of oneness, they may heal the sickness of a divided humanity. To none is given the right to question their words or disparage their conduct, for they are the only ones who can claim to have understood the patient and to have correctly diagnosed its ailment. No man, however acute his perception, can ever hope to reach the heights which the wisdom and understanding of the divine physician have attained. Little wonder then if the treatment prescribed by the physician in this day should not be found to be identical with that which he prescribed before. How could it be otherwise when the ills affecting the sufferer necessitated every stage of his sickness a special remedy? In like manner, every time the prophets of God have illumined the world with the resplendent radiance of the day star of divine knowledge, they have invariably summoned its people to embrace the light of God through such means as best befitted the exigencies of the age in which they appeared. They were thus able to scatter the darkness of ignorance and to shed upon the world the glory of their own knowledge. It is towards the inmost essence of these prophets, therefore, that the eye of every man of discernment must be directed, inasmuch as their one and only purpose hath always been to guide the erring and give peace to the afflicted. These are not days of prosperity and triumph. The whole of mankind is in the grip of manifold ills. Strive, therefore, to save its life through the wholesome medicine which the almighty hand of the unerring physician hath prepared. Baha'u'llah. Long-suffering patience is the supreme aesthetic practice. Nirvana is supreme, say the Buddhas. He is certainly not an ascetic who hurts others, and nor is he a man of religion who causes suffering to others. Sayings of the Buddha.
If any man among you seem to be religious and bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is vain. Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. King James Bible, James. The purpose of the one true God, exalted be his glory, in revealing himself unto men, is to lay bare those gems that lie hidden within the mine of their true and inmost selves, that the diverse communions of the earth and the manifold systems of religious belief should never be allowed to foster the feelings of animosity among men, is in this day of the essence of the faith of God and his religion. These principles and laws, these firmly established and mighty systems, have proceeded from one source and are the rays of one light. That they differ one from another is to be attributed to the varying requirements of the ages in which they were promulgated. Gird up the loins of your endeavour, O people of Baha, that haply the tumult of religious dissension and strife that agitateth the peoples of the earth may be stilled, that every trace of it may be completely obliterated. For the love of God and them that serve him, arise to aid this most sublime and momentous revelation. Religious fanaticism and hatred are a world-devouring fire, whose violence none can quench. The hand of divine power can alone deliver mankind from this desolating affliction. The utterance of God is a lamp, whose light is these words: Ye are the fruits of one tree and the leaves of one branch. Deal ye, one with another, with the utmost love and harmony, with friendliness and fellowship. He who is the day star of truth beareth me witness. So powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth. The one true God, he who knoweth all things, himself testifieth to the truth of these words. Baha'u'llah.
In you, O Lord, do I take refuge. Let me never be put to shame. In your righteousness, deliver me. Incline your ear to me. Rescue me speedily. Be a rock of refuge for me, strong fortress to save me. For you are my rock and my fortress, and for your name's sake, you lead me and guide me. You take me out of the net they have hidden for me. For you are my refuge. Into your hand I commit my spirit. You have redeemed me, O Lord, faithful God. I hate those who pay regard to worthless idols, but I trust in the Lord. I will rejoice and be glad in your steadfast love, because you have seen my affliction. You have known the distress of my soul, and you have not delivered me into the hand of the enemy. You have set my feet in a broad place. From Judaism. Religion, moreover, is not a series of beliefs, a set of customs. Religion is the teachings of the Lord God, teachings which constitute the very life of humankind, which urge high thoughts upon the mind, refine the character, and lay the groundwork for man's everlasting honor. Note thou, could these fevers in the world of the mind, these fires of war and hate, of resentment and malice among the nations, this aggression of peoples against people, which have destroyed the tranquility of the whole world, ever be made to abate, except through the living waters of the teachings of God? No, never. And this is clear, a power above and beyond the powers of nature must needs be brought to bear to change this black darkness into light, and these hatreds and resentments, grudges and spites, these endless wrangles and wars into fellowship and love among all the peoples of the earth. This power is none other than the breathings of the Holy Spirit and the mighty inflow of the Word of God. Abdul Baha.
The difference among the religions of the world are due to the varying types of minds. So long as the powers of the mind are various, it is certain that man's judgments and opinion will differ one from another. If, however, one single universal perspective power be introduced, a power encompassing all the rest, those differing opinions will merge, and the spiritual harmony and oneness will become apparent. For example, when the Christ was made manifest, the minds of the various contemporary peoples, their views, their emotional attitudes, whether they were Romans, Greek, Syrians, Israelites, or others, were at variance with one another. But once his universal power was brought to bear, it gradually succeeded. After the lapse of 300 years, in gathering together all those divergent minds under the protection and with the governance of one central point, all sharing the same spiritual emotions in their hearts. Abdul Baha, selection from the writings of Abdul Baha.
And among the teachings of Baha'u'llah is that religion is a mighty bulwark. If the edifice of religion shakes and totters, commotion and chaos will ensue, and the order of things will be utterly upset. For in the world of mankind, there are two safeguards that protect men from wrongdoing. One is the law which punishes the criminal, but the law prevents only the manifest crime and not a concealed sin. There is the ideal safeguard, namely the religion of God, prevent both the manifest and the concealed crime, trains men, educates morals, compels the adoption of virtues, and is the all-inclusive power which guarantees the felicity of the world of mankind. But by religion is meant that which is ascertained by investigation, and not that which is based on mere imitation, the foundations of divine religions and not human imitations. Abdul Baha, selections from the writings of Abdul Baha, page 302.
O God, who art the author of all manifestations, the source of all sources, the fountainhead of all revelations, and the wellspring of all lights, I testify that by thy name the heaven of understanding hath been adorned, and the ocean of utterance hath surged, and the dispensations of thy providence have been promulgated unto the followers of all religions. I beseech thee so to enrich me as to dispense with all save thee, and be made independent of anyone except thyself. Rain down then upon me out of the clouds of thy bounty that which shall profit me in every world of thy worlds. Assist me then through thy strengthening grace, so to serve thy cause amidst thy servants, that I may show forth what will cause me to be remembered as long as thine own kingdom endureth and thy dominion will last. This is thy servant, O my Lord, who with his whole being hath turned unto the horizon of thy bounty and the ocean of thy grace and the heaven of thy gifts. Do with me then as becometh thy majesty and thy glory and thy bounteousness and thy grace. Thou in truth art the God of strength and power, who art meet to answer them that pray thee. There is no God save thee, the all-knowing, the all-wise. Baha'u'llah. Prayers and meditation by Baha'u'llah.
Wherefore O my loving friends, consort with all the peoples, kindreds, and religions of the world with the utmost truthfulness, uprightness, faithfulness, kindliness, goodwill, and friendliness, that all the world of being may be filled with the holy ecstasy of the grace of Baha, that ignorance, enmity, hate, and rancor may vanish from the world, and the darkness of extravagance amid the peoples and kindreds of the world may give way to the light of unity. Should other peoples and nations be unfaithful to you, show your fidelity unto them. Should they be unjust towards you, show justice towards them. Should they keep aloof from you, attract them to yourself. Should they show their enmity, be friendly towards them. Should they poison your lives, sweeten their souls. Should they inflict a wound upon you, be a slave to their souls. Such are the attributes of the sincere. Such are the attributes of the truthful. Abdul Baha, the Will and Testament.
Oh my God,
Thank you very much for our readers. And I welcome you all to tonight's program. And special thanks to those who are joining the program for the first time. And we are fortunate tonight to have Dr. Boris Handal, who is going to give a talk about the religion, the religion of the Bab. Dr. Boris Handal is a professor of education at the University of North Australia. He has taught in schools and universities in South America, Asia, and Australia for over more than 35 years.
Long.
Sorry, sorry, please you introduce yourself. I think that is better than I'm trying to see. Welcome, thank you very much, please.
You mentioned that I have been teaching 35 years. I said it has been too long.
No, sorry.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to this interfaith meeting. I'm going to talk tonight about the religion of the Bab. And the reason why I chose this topic is that the religion of the Bab is a religion which is not very well known in the West, and also in the East, because it was a religion that lasted not very long. At the same time, it grew up very quick. And in the space of, say, 6 years, about 100,000 people enrolled into this space in Iran, Persia. So the religion of the Bab. See, can you see my PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes.
Very important. All right. So the religion of the Bab was, of course, founded by a person, a figure called the Bab. And the Bab is a title that means in Arabic, means the gate, the door, the gate of God, the gate to God. So the Bab appeared in Persia, in Iran, in the first half of the 19th century. He was born as Ali Muhammad, that was his birth name. And he was a descendant from Prophet Muhammad by the father's side and by the mother's side. Which means,
Please mute yourself, please.
which means it was a symbol of distinction. So he was born in the year of 1819 in Shiraz, and declared his prophetic mission on May 1844 to a first believer. But from 1844 to 1850, he was imprisoned and exiled till he was executed 6 years later in 1850. So his life as a prophet took only 6 years. Very similar to what Jesus Christ endured, only 3 years as a prophet, as far as we know. Now, in the religion of the Bab, he's not actually worshipped, but he's considered a God mouthpiece, interlocutor with God. Let's learn something about his life. He lost his father when he was a child, and then he was raised by his maternal uncle. And he used to take the boy to school, but there are many stories that shows that he was already as a child gifted with special knowledge and wisdom, and Usually he has to be sent back home because the teacher said, I have nothing special to teach to this child. He came from a family of merchants. So at about 50, when he was 15 years old, he began in this career as a merchant. And in 1842, he got married and he had a child who died when he was very young. Great. Now, what are the claims of the above? These are the claims that he raised. And for this claim, he was accused of heresy and he was persecuted till his final death in 1850. He proclaimed to be the gate of God and declared to be the promised one of Islam, which in Islamic traditions are called the Qaim or the Mahdi. They were a figure that was promised in Islam. He also proclaimed to be an independent prophet of God with the same caliber of Jesus, Muhammad, Krishna, Moses, Abraham. So he declared that he was a prophet of God, independent prophet of God. For this reason, he got laws and ordinances and a book. We are talking about this later on. Another claim that he made is that he was the forerunner of a greater messenger to come. So he said that he was like John the Baptist, coming to announce the coming, who came to announce the coming of Jesus Christ. So one of the missions of the Bab was to announce the coming of another messenger, which he identified with Baha'u'llah. So this is Shiraz. This is the city where he was born. At that time, the Persian Empire was in a process of decadence. And as you can see, there was a lot of poverty and obscurantism in this part of the world. When he was 15 years old, as I mentioned before, the Bab started working as a merchant in the port of Bushehr. And you can see Bushehr, this is the map of Iran on the right-hand side, and Bushehr is on the Persian Gulf in red. And on the picture on the left-hand side, you can see the shop where he used to trade. He settled later in his house in Shiraz. This is a picture of his house in Shiraz. In this house, on the 23rd of May, 1844, he declared his mission to be as an independent prophet of God, the promised one of Islam. Because of his teaching, he encountered a fierce opposition in Iran. And that's why he was sent to this castle of Makud as an imprisonment between the years 1847 and 1848. It's a fortress in a place very close to the border with Russia. It's in this place where he revealed his book called the Bayan, his book of law and exhortations. So the Bayan is the important book in the religion of the Bab. Because his influence as in the neighboring towns was very strong, and people was going on pilgrimage to see him, the government decided to transfer him to a more remote place, which is Chehrik, also very close to the border with Russia, where he stays there for nearly 2 years in total confinement. Till eventually the government decided to execute him because at that moment, the Babis were growing so much in numbers, the influence was felt, the accusations of heresy created so much ordeal in the country that the government thought that by executing the Bab, his face was going to disappear. So therefore, in the city of Tabriz, on 19th of July, 1850, he was executed by 750 soldiers. So 750 soldiers, they lined up in 3 rows in the public square, just to execute the Bab. However, his face keep growing and keep evolving later on. So now I'm going to talk about the spiritual teachings of the Bab, and then I'm going to talk about the social teaching of the Bab. As a prophet of God, the Bab, in his book, the Bayan, and any other books that he wrote beautiful prayers and beautiful teaching for humanity. For example, this is one of his writings when he emphasizes purity, refinement, and cleanliness. And he says, God wishes not to witness among humans that which is not other than joy and radiance. And he desires that all appear in utmost spiritual and physical purity, that their own souls be not repulsed, how much less the souls of others. He put a lot of emphasis on purity, refinement, and cleanliness, and even instructed their believers to use perfume, and always being in spotless clothes. Another of his teachings is about courtesy, where he forbade totally violence to anyone, even raising their voice with each other. Kindness. Kindness was a very important teaching in the Bab, where he says that nobody should afflict anyone with grief. And he went to the extreme to say that if anyone is causing grief to another person, that person should receive a fine. So if you look at the quote here, he said, if you find in your midst one who is abased, exalt him to the extent you can. And if you find one who is built by ignorance, educate him to the degree of your capacity. I am just showing you some glimpses of his writings. Of course, there is much more to say, but in only 25 minutes is a very short time. Perfection. Also a topic of great emphasis in the Bab's teachings, that everything that we do should be made to perfection. Anything, even he said, write it on a piece of paper, or creating a building, a house. Everything that we do should be done with perfection. An important teaching of the Bab was the creation of a new calendar. So we are now talking about the social teachings of the Bab. A calendar is a very important tool in a society, because with a calendar, we organize the time. Just think, for example, here in Australia, suddenly we change to a calendar of 15 days or 10 days a month, how things will have to change. So the Bab changed the previous calendars and instituted a new calendar for humanity. And this calendar has 19 months of 19 days each. So 19 times 19 is 361 days. And each of these months have the name of an attribute of God. For example, The first month is the month of splendor. The second month, the glory, beauty, grandeur, light, mercy, perfection, and so on, because each month gives you a thing to think about it, about the perfection of God. So it's a calendar that actually spiritualizes the time and our daily businesses. Some of the other teachings in the social aspect are the Bob's injunction that the rich should give out of the wealth, they should give, share their wealth with poor people. He totally forgot, totally prohibited begging, for example. He said no one should beg and no one should give money to the beggars. But he said that when a person reaches a certain amount of wealth, he has to pay a particular amount of tax, and this tax should be distributed among poor people. This was quite revolutionary in 19th century Persia, for example. In terms of religious tolerance, the Bab taught that religion is about love and compassion, and is not for force and coercion, for example. So with a religious tolerance was an important principle in the Bab teaching. Equality. For the Bab, everyone was equal. In this passage, the Bab says that the rulers and the farmers, they are all equal in the sight of God. So rulers, kings, and people working in agriculture, they are all to be seen with equality. Again, it was a very revolutionary principle in 19th century Persia. The Bab also emphasized the need for seeking knowledge. Now, in a country like Persia, like Iran, where they were living in the Middle Ages, in absolutely of curatisms, where even medicine was prohibited because it meant working with bodies, and working with bodies was sinful. The Bab encouraged their followers to go everywhere on earth and read their books, visit their countries, and get all the science that they can in order to progress. Again, this is a very revolutionary teaching in the 19th century Persia. In terms of treatment to women, the Bab also made a progress on the conditions that they could live. For example, in 19th century Persian, women cannot talk to men and vice versa. So, for example, the houses didn't have windows, and the women live secluded with a veil in some private part of the house. The Bab allow men to talk to women. He also mentioned that they shouldn't be mistreated, and they should be treated with kindness, twice the kindness that a person should show to a man should be given to a woman. And finally, what you see here is the shrine of the Bab, which is now on Mount Carmel. After his execution in 1850, the remains of the Bab were hidden because of the danger that the government take control of the remains. But finally, they were transferred to the Mount Carmel, and as a result, a beautiful shrine has been built in that place, which is the Mount Carmel in Israel, around the Baha'i holy places, which are in the same area. More principles about the Bab, teachings about early life. You can get a glimpse of how how powerful, how much emphasis the Bab put on spiritual and mystical themes. And in this passage, he says that the mortal life is just the carcass of a dog. No? Don't put too much expectation on this early life, because we all are going to pass. This is another beautiful teaching of the Bab, the golden rule: be thou for God and for creatures, even as God has been for God himself and for creatures. To purify your heart, to have a pure heart, a clean heart, is also one of the beautiful teachings of the Bab, that we have to work every day through our deeds to purify our heart and have these celestial angelic virtues as an adorn for us. He talked about prayer, and he said that the most acceptable prayer is the one which offered with the utmost spirituality and radiance. The prolongation is not really beloved by God. So it's not about that you pray 1 hour, 2 hours, can be a shorter prayer, but if the prayer is detached and pure motive, then it's most acceptable. So there are many of these teachings of the Bab in these books. I just chose a few ones. Very important to pray for parents, even if they should wrong you, still you have to pray for your parents every day. I think we talk about something similar to this, not to be the cause of sadness to any soul, and be a cause of radiance and joy to everyone. Thank you. As I said before, it's very difficult to talk only 20 minutes, but I thought that this new religion that appeared in 19th century Persia, there have been many books, hundreds of books written about it, but still is not well known. So therefore, I thought that probably will be a topic of interest. And you have any questions, more than happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. That was beautiful, very insightful and informative. Thank you. Now we have any questions, please. Welcome to ask. I just thought before we start, if there is no question, I have my question. I asked my question that why so many people in a short time, they got so much attracted. There was no communication so much on those days. Or I always wondered how that happened, that suddenly everything went on fire, like, the whole country.
Because there was a messianic expectation, not only in Persia, but all around the world, that in about the year 1844, a new messenger of God will come. And we also know, for example, of Adventist groups that they moved to the Holy Land because they thought that around 1844, Jesus Christ will come. So it was not only in the Western world, in Christianity, but also in Islam. There was a huge discussion about that this is the time for the coming of a new messenger of God. So people were waiting, anxiously waiting. And when the Bab came and declared his mission, and people felt the truth of his missions, they, in thousands, accepted his faith. A sort of mass conversion, entire villages, entire neighborhoods, to the point that by the time the Bab died in 1850, about 10,000 Babis, followers of the Bab, were killed. Such was the the persecution to the early believers of the Bab, that about 100,000, about 10,000 were killed in mass as well. So that was this expectation sitting in everyone's mind. Everyone was talking, a new messenger is going to come. And the Bab fitted into their that framework.
Thank you so much. And government was against government more was against the religion, or the
was government and the clergy. Usually, the government and the ecclesiastical order were different, separated. But in that case, when it came to persecute the Bab, both got together. And that was a very strange case because, for example, if we look at Jesus Christ, he was persecuted by the religious hierarchy, but not by the government. But in the case of the Bab, the combination of the claims of heresy plus the army, powerful army, the state army, that can end up as a result resulted in massacres around the country. So it was a very powerful thing that the government with the ecclesiastical establishment, they combined, persecuted the Bab.
Was that the reason? Or sorry, please, someone else ask questions.
I was just going to comment on that. I guess I might be wrong, but my understanding is at the time, the clergies used to advise the government of Iran at the time of the Persia. And because they were putting fear in the minds of the government officials and the king at the time, that if you don't persecute this person or if you don't stop this movement, you would lose your power and you would lose your positions. I think from hearing from the history, that must have been a force that in clergies were backing up the government or advising the government, and government was listening to the clergymen at the time.
That's correct.
Zora, can I add something to
Yes,
what Boris
please,
said?
please, Ahmad.
Yeah, apart from what Boris has said, sorry, the early believers of the Bab decided to spread all over Iran. Even one or two went to India. One of the members of the Letters of the Living, and the message was to be spread through the whole land. And I think it was an order by the Bab for his followers to spread. And I'd like to tell you a story. My mom had told us, the children, that her mom has told her this story, that the story is that when in their village, which is a small village in vicinity of the city of Yazd, a horse rider had come, bringing his horse, refreshing the horse, and at the same time saying that the Qaim has appeared, which is the holy person that in Islam they're expecting. So this rider comes to the village, says the Qaim has come, and then refreshes the horse and just leaves. And this just gives them a hint that the holy Qaim has appeared. And that's the story that my mom has told us, that it's gone through our family, that such a thing happened. I don't know whether it's true or not, but that's what my mom was telling us, that she heard that story from her mom. Yeah, so
did they pursue the message?
So the early believers spread through the country to give the message to the people. Sorry, what did you say?
No, I asked, did they become the Babi or Baha'is because of that message? I mean, did they pursue the message, your family?
She didn't say anymore, just that this happened, that a person appeared as a horse rider and gave that message, refreshed the horse. And then, because at those times, the only way of traveling was either with a donkey or a horse. And they used to, when they wanted to travel, they would hire a horse, travel for a distance and to another city, and then give that horse to a place and replace with another horse, and they would travel further. So that was the way of travel in the old times.
Communication.
But I don't know whether anybody became Baha'i. I know that my grandfather was one of the early people in the village that became Baha'i. So that's a long way after that story.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yes. Yes, Mr. Siva.
Boris, you said that, first of all, thank you for coming and giving a talk, because not many people know about the Bab's religion as such. But you mentioned that he assumed the name the Bab, that means the gate. And also you said that he was the promised one, the kind in the Bible, in the Quran. Now, you also said that he is the gate for the coming of a greater one, that is Baha'u'llah. How did you know that Baha'u'llah is going to come? Was it in the Quran, or was it a revelation to him by God? How did he know?
So how the question is how the Bab knew that he was coming. It's a mixture of several things, but this is a very deep topic that we need more time. But basically, we can say that the holy books of Islam and the tradition of Islam, and also from the Bible, mention the appearance of two messengers. One is, for example, you look at the Zacharias vision of two messengers, two anointed messengers. And then you look also at the book of Revelation by John. He also mentioned in 3/4 part the coming of two messengers coming together, twin messengers. So this was the prophecies of the Old Testament, New Testament, but also in the Quran, the appearance of two messengers of God, two messengers in several forms, the sound of two trumpets and so on. So that was part of the messianic expectation that was built in those religions. When it comes to Persia, Iran, which was an Islamic place, this was very much what people thought, that there were two messengers coming. That the Bab was the first, and Baha'u'llah was the second. So therefore, when you look at when you read the writings of the Bab, especially the book of the Bayan, 2/3 of the book of the Bayan, really, Bab talks about the coming of a new messenger of God. 2/3 of his book. So the Bab religion was a religion of transition, and we can see this because of the short time of his ministry. In the Bayan, he specifically mentioned, and in other part of his writing, mention the name of Baha'u'llah. So Baha'u'llah becomes the continuity of the teachings of the Bab. So therefore, when Baha'u'llah declared his mission in 1863, 19 years after the declaration of the Bab, most of the Babis embrace the faith of Baha'u'llah, the Baha'i faith, and Baha'u'llah takes the teachings of the Bab, and he modified the teachings of the Bab. He transformed the teachings of the Bab in a sort of evolution, to the future, to the point that the faith of the Bab and the faith of Baha'u'llah become just one global faith. So both together makes a global faith. Does it answer your question?
Yes, thank you. But are there any is the Babi religion still existing? Are there any Babis?
Not really. Very. You see, what happened is that majority of the Babis accepted the faith of the Bab, Baha'u'llah. There were only a few who didn't, but because it has gone for so much time, there are very few apparently that are living, but they don't disclose themselves publicly. So it's very difficult to identify who they are.
Thank you. Please, Doctor, you ask your question, Dr. Concept.
Just call.
Pass.
It's very interesting to know new things and new from the history. My only question is, what qualities make a good religious person? And today's life, supposing, and my today or tomorrow, I am a good religious person. What qualities make me a good religious person in today's life?
That's a very interesting question. Thank you. I think it depends. In every religion can be Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism. They all characterize a number of spiritual qualities that we should strive. Compassion, justice, love, kindness, service, you name it. Someone gave me a list of 300 of these spiritual qualities. What is important is that across all the religions, that the person practice these qualities. And later put it. And practice those on which the person feel a bit shorter. Say, for example, I don't have patience, so I have to engage more in things that develop my patience or my sense of justice or my sense of equity. So I don't think there is a limited number of spiritual qualities that will make a religious person special, but I think it's a whole range, a whole spectrum, a whole range. It's like playing a piano. You can play so many musical notes, and the more notes you play, the richer spiritual you will become.
Okay. Can I also add something to that? I think in one of the writing tonight we read that the religion is kind of a remedy, and it comes according to the ailment of the mankind. So I guess if we want to be more effective, and you said be a best person, to know what is the remedy for our sickness today. And if we practice that remedy, I think that will be the kind of more effective. That is how I understand. I don't know what writing, what number was that, but we read that the religion comes according to the ailment of the society in that period. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Fatanuja.
Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
My second part of my question is, I am not the kind of person a religious person should be. What should I do? How? What will help me in getting those qualities? What will bring change in that in me, that I become my journey to become a religious person and acquire those qualities starts? How should I start? How will I change myself?
The first step probably is to develop a pure heart. Once you develop a pure heart, then you will have a blank slate where you can build and grow all type of other spiritual qualities. But to have a pure heart, a kind heart, is, in my view, is the foundation of this journey, where this pure heart will give you a sense of justice on what is true and what is not true, because you have a pure heart, a pure motive. And I think, from my view, that will be the first step, to develop a pure heart.
Sorry, my question is, can I change myself, or will I be able to change myself even if I want to?
I think so, because you have been created perfect. One of the things that the Bob says is that everyone, the creation is perfect. We have been created perfect. So we have all the potentials to, what the Bob says, develop to perfection. He puts so much emphasis on perfection, in refinement to become perfect. And because it comes from the principle that we have been created to the image of God, to the spiritual image of God. So we have the capacity to improve, and this way of improvement is always continuous, always goes eternally forward.
May I comment?
Please.
For example, as Abdul Baha says, happiness comes from service to humanity and to everyone. Once you think about serving others, putting others
ahead of yourself.
Yeah, putting others ahead of yourself, then you become happy and joyful within. And that's the true happiness. True happiness is not something you can buy, or you can just find it by showing kindness. Have, in one of the writings, it says, let your heart burn with loving kindness for those who may cross your path. Or in another passage, Abdul Baha says, when a thought of war or hate or war comes to your mind, oppose it with the stronger thought of love. And in another writing, Abdul Baha says, a man is born as a mine filled with inestimable gems, with a lot of gems. Gems are all those invaluable or priceless diamonds, or the things that you find in a mine. And Abdul Baha says a human being is born with all those gems inside them, and education can alone help the person to realize it, that they have it. Unfortunately, in the earthly life, people are born pure, but they unfortunately they learn the negative things when they live on the earthly life. So that's why all the teachings of the religions are saying detach yourself from all the earthly desires and conduct yourself with the virtues and become more spiritual.
Or we get very much busy with the world that we don't look for those gems inside ourselves. We don't discover them and we leave this world.
Thank you. Could I ask Tracy to ask the question, please? Thank you, Fatanaj.
Anyway, I appreciated hearing about the jewels inside, and I appreciated your talk, Boris. It's prompted my curiosity when he was, the government and the clerics, made his martyrdom so quickly. How did Baha'u'llah manage to avoid that martyrdom, or that he had a longer time to minister? In that type of environment. It's only 19 years later. What had changed in that time?
Right. Yes. So Baha'u'llah was one of the first disciples of the Bab. Like John the Baptist, he was one of the first disciples of Jesus Christ. So there are some analogies there, but the Baha'u'llah accepted the faith of the Bab the first year of when Bab declared his mission. And for the next 6 years, he was an active supporter of the Bab. He was actively involved. He was virtually the leader of the Babis, because the Bab was in the mountains, was imprisoned. Bab didn't have really access to his believers because he was forbidden. He was in those castles up far away, but very restricted access. So therefore, the Baha'u'llah was also put in prison. He was tortured several times, imprisoned several times, but that was the wisdom that he wasn't killed for unknown reason. So when Bab is executed in 1850, 2 years later, there is a great wave of persecution. Baha'u'llah is put in a prison, and at that moment, there was a high probability that he was going to be killed because he was the leader. He was known to be the head of the Babi community. Even if he didn't have an appointment, he was the virtual leader. Let's remember that Baha'u'llah came from a very aristocratic family, very rich family. Part of this was his position. He was seen as a person of influence. But he's not killed, but he's then exiled to Baghdad. And he lived in Baghdad for 10 years. And after 10 years, he is asked to be banished again somewhere else. But before he is banished in 1863, he declared his mission. So while he was in Iran, he was always in high risk. Once he went to Baghdad, he's in a more secure situation, let's call it this way. But the point is that, my point here is that the Bab says that he gave a term of 19 years. He said that the new manifestation, the new messenger will come up after 19 years. So from 1844, 19 years is 1863, when the Bab declared his mission. So there was 19 years of, call it night of period when there was not a prophet, a messenger guiding directly the community. And that is retaking in 1863. Does this answer your question, Christine?
Tracy.
Yes,
Tracy,
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you have a very
thank you.
complicated, complex answer.
Yes, but it's very 19 years is a long time of a night, a spiritual night. Actually, we think of 19 years.
And it wasn't easy for the Babi community because they were about to not to disappear, but they for 19 years they went into a sort of a spiritual confusions. You call it decadence in a way for 19 years, confusion, loss of hope, lack of guidance, that finally when Baha'u'llah retakes the leadership in 1863, they start to breathe in again. But we were 19 years of, from 1850 to 1863, and that's what the Bab said. He said, you will be like camels roaming in the desert. But be aware that look at the book of the Bayan. He gave a lot of signs about, he called him whom God shall make manifest. It's a term that he constantly repeats in his book, him whom God shall manifest. And the whole thing is stay alert, stay aware. He can come, he will come, and be alert.
Thank you very much, Ms. And Ahmad, I think that's a question.
Yeah, I wanted to just say a few comments. First, about Perry's question that whether Bob knew about Baha'u'llah. We know that Bob and Baha'u'llah never met, but we know from history, from the historical books, that he ordered Mullah Hussein, which is the first believer in Bob, to go to Mashhad, which is a northern city, to get approval of a mujtahid, which is a high clergy in Islam. But he also said to him that to take the route towards Tehran, which is the capital city. And then he said that he would meet a noble person there. And he gave him a letter that to give to this noble man. And when Mullah Hussein came to Tehran, he found Baha'u'llah, and that letter belonged to Baha'u'llah. So Mullah Hussein met on behalf of Bab, and obviously this means that the Bab knew about Baha'u'llah and the station of Baha'u'llah. That's why he sent Mullah Hussein to Tehran. The other thing that I wanted to say about the question that Concept, I don't know what his name is, asked, Baha'u'llah in his holy book, and the first thing that you read in that book is that a person, a human being, should discover the manifestation of God of his time, and when he recognizes that manifestation, to follow the principles that he orders. But in Book of Iqan, Baha'u'llah leaves some prerequisition for recognition. And these are four things. One, to have a pure heart, so that the message can sit into the heart. To have a pure ear, so that when a message comes, he hears it in the right way. And to have a pure tongue, so that it would not defile the tongue with rubbish. And the fourth thing is that to have a pure mind, to have a mind that is free of superstition and prejudice, so that when message comes, it can be recognized. So those are four requisites for recognizing the manifestation of the time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's great. Young, would you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I have two questions, please. The first one is, we've been hearing Professor has explained to us about the purity and refinement and cleanliness and pure heart and everything about a good virtual person that's supposed to meet God. My question is, if somebody commit a crime here on earth, and if he been punished by the court system or the jury system, like just say 5 years or 7 years, and then he got when he got died, will he be taken by the angels, Michael, Archangel Raphael, or Michael, take him to see God, and then God will give him another punishment for another 7 years, just to help him to purify, to be purified. Well, how the court system in heaven and on earth work on this man to purify him?
That's a very interesting question, Jan. I wish I can go there and come back to give you the answer. But Baha'u'llah has said that you pay for a crime here, then you won't be accountable again in the other world, because that is not justice. If you pay for the crime here, then you are exempt of paying it again. But if you didn't pay it here, then you will face it in the other world.
Yeah, that would be, I think that would be more merciful.
Exactly.
For the crime person.
That's right.
And my second question is, because I just read on a piece of paper that you wrote 100 publications.
Yes.
So it is a hard amount of books or the topics that you've been writing, 100 publications. And for me, it's quite impressive. And I just relate me to the questions that if we read books, we will see God or angels, each of them look after a different sphere, like the angel or the God of water, the angel or the God of mountain, the angel of the land, the angel of the fire, the angel of literature, the angel of mathematics, to say, for example, through the books that we've been reading about religion. So but when we were young, we were educated like, oh, you need to be a generalist, not a specialist, because if you become a generalist, means it's easy for you to get a job. But if you're a specialist, and if that area shut down, like if you study finance, and a finance global crisis happening, then that person will lose a job. That's how we were educated. So we say, okay, so one of us, if we want to find a job in the future, we need to have at least 3 or 4 degrees. So 1 degree is not good enough. So, so I mean, because you're in the education and you've been in that area, can you help us out?
Sure. Look, when if you go to uni today, start doing your education, you are going to learn 2 things. You're going to learn how to learn, and then you are going to learn a specific discipline. Okay? The specific discipline that you are going to learn, say law. You're going to be a lawyer. So to become a lawyer, you study 4 years, correct? Read books about laws. By the time you finish your 4 year of law, it has been said that all these laws have changed.
That's very true. Yes, that's very true.
And I teach education. I teach teacher education students. My job to teach people how to become teachers. Okay, I'm a teacher trainer, right?
Exactly.
When I say to my students, look, just be very aware here when you come, that when you come to uni to become a teacher and you enrolled, first of all, you are here 4 years to learn how to learn, right? You will open your mind and learn new things. Second, you are going to learn to teach on a specific discipline, say mathematics, science, English. And third, you are going to teach, you learn to teach people, teach kids. The way you are going to teach is going to change in 4 years. I said, by the time you finish in 4 years, your teaching education course, the system will change, the curriculum will change, the students will change, the school will change, the infrastructure will change. It's not going to be more technology. Now we have evidence that students know more than a teacher. It's one of the few cases in history that the students say the solar system. Yes, students can learn much about the solar system from the internet and applications and so on, that the teacher that used to read his black and white book, you know, that is images, static knowledge. So what's going to happen after 4 years, the way we educate is going to change. So you need to have this open mind. And remember that you are here to learn how to learn, and you are here to teach kids, more than teaching mathematics, more than teaching science. So when it happens to other disciplines, it's the same principle. Either you do engineering, it's going to change for years. How to build houses, buildings, is totally different. Remember that in our time, people have to draw planes with ink and so on, while now they just put things on the computer and you got the plane, and you say to the builder, no, I want to change the size of the room, and he just, everything change. How to prove that a building is structurally sound? It's just computer simulation and so on. So we need to emphasize in our students how to learn and also how to unlearn. We have learned something for many years. Now it's time to change our paradigms, and we need to learn how to unlearn to learn again. And I think when we look at these teachings of other religions, and we look at the teaching of the Bob, you see, and we look at the emphasis he put in so many spiritual qualities, I think we are learning new things. We learn new things, and it comes to the question of which spiritual qualities should I practice. There are so many, but we need to get into this mood of learning new things, because that's the way to the future. The careers that are going to be current in 5-10 years, they haven't been discovered yet.
Yes.
So if God gives us more life in 5 years, there are going to be new jobs, new careers, new things that we don't know. You know, which ones are those?
Yes.
Therefore, the emphasis is about learning how to learn, be flexible, and learning how to unlearn to learn new things again.
Yes, I understood that when you mentioned about perfection in one of your paragraphs, we do talk about kind heart, perfection, hard work, education, and Father Jones, the gems, diamonds in ourselves and in other people. But then the thing that the contradiction is that life will not be easier, but will be like why God just make life for human beings so not easy. That's what I'm saying. If we talk about the God of mercy, our job is like 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, like, versatile, multi-skilling, multitasking, everything. And especially to be a woman, we have to be like more versatile because we need to know how to cook and we need to know how to speak French also, in addition of English or other language,
Right.
So it's like very versatile.
I think you raise an important point, and they wrote this point to the Pope. They say, why is it that you are suffering so much and we are going through much struggle? If you are the prophet of God, just convert everyone. And he said, no. He said, I have the power to convert the whole country to my faith, he said. All right? Like any prophet. But he said, no. It's through these struggles that we are going to distinguish truth from error. If these difficulties were not there, then people wouldn't distinguish truth from error. Probably people will confuse truth and error as reciprocal, as identical. So I think these problems that we got in life, they have a reason. And the reason is that we have to struggle, right, to overcome these situations in a way so that we can really establish that what is correct, what's incorrect, what's true, what's error, what is wrong, what's right. So the struggles, the difficulties we face in life are a way to progress. Because if we didn't have these difficulties, it's like going through a university, no exams, no assignments, no attendance, all fine, beautiful. But at the end of the 4th year, we wouldn't have learned anything. Is it?
Yes,
So that's the answer the Pope said. I have the power to convert everyone. But he said, no. There was, for example, a very powerful person, rich person, governor, that offered, he was the governor of a very important province. He was actually a Christian.
Isfahan.
In Isfahan, yes. He was a Christian, very strange in a Muslim country, but the king liked him very much because he was very loyal. And he was single and rich, amazingly rich. And he offered the Pope all his fortune. And the Pope said, I don't need your fortune, right? Because this faith must develop through the lowest. And he said the lowest means the simple people in his country. It's the people that are going to progress the faith. And he plainly refused all his wealth. He was going to give all his inheritance to the Pope. The Pope said to him, unfortunately, you are going to die in this number of days. So remember the days, 40 days. And he died. He died according to the Pope's prophecy. And the Pope liked him very much. And when he died, all his fortune went to his nephew, who was not really a good person, from what we know. So therefore, sometimes through these difficulties, through these struggles in life, we manage to progress.
Thank you. Bayan, would you like to say your question? Bayan's hand has been.
Yeah. I have actually not question, but I just want to say a few things in addition to what Boris said. First, I want to say something about what Young was asking about perfection or talking about perfection. Perfection is a gradual. It is not going to happen in one day or 1 year. So we are actually improving. We are becoming more what we call better, or maybe more perfect. But we never can be perfect. What we have read in the books. So it is always gradual, and it is also relatively one-to-one, or maybe one to other people. The other thing I want to say regarding concept question, I want to add something about that. The basic foundation of all religion is same. The sun which is shining today is the same sun was shining yesterday. This is what Abdul Baha said in Paris today. He replied to answer of the question of the Catholic priest. But what is changing in the old religion is only the social part of religion. And the social part of religion, it depends on the time. And also to accept those changes, we need, as Abdul Baha says, the son of Baha'u'llah, he says we have to be fair-minded. And purity in motivation, purity in, in mind, what is our purpose of, And one of the example I can say, for example, about the social changes, about the method of teaching. In thousand years ago, the method of teaching and the subject they used to teach, maybe it was science, and it was literature, or language, or philosophy. But as the time goes, and we are coming close to today, the method of teaching and the subject are actually disintegrate and separated. And the teachers and students, they are learning from each other the new things, which is actually basically same foundation. But the subjects are now separated and more clear, more, more up to date, and more things discovered or invented or produced. For example, algebra. It was not algebra we have today. In algebra 1,000 years ago, maybe it was different, very basic. That is what I like to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Elizabeth, please.
I'm going back to the comment about unlearning. What Baha'u'llah wrote was that it's important to detach and to look at his writings and say, are they true? Is there truth in his writings? And a lot of people are stuck in their religion because they think there's nothing else after that. There's only one religion. If you look at yourselves and the whole planet, how it has evolved and how it has changed, it's important to detach and say, all the things that I have been taught, now I'm going to learn something new. And does it fit my belief, my inner feelings, my spiritual contact? We all have it. It's just knowing and being game enough to detach and reread what has been said. Because, unless we examine the Baha'i writings, they could be wrong. And you can't just say, oh, yes, I'll become that because it's a modern movement. No, that's not what God wants. He wants us to purify ourselves, to become pure in thought and pure in deeds. And then we can move forward. I was brought up a Christian, and I have no doubt that what Christ said was to come. And when I did find it, I examined it. I really did. And one of the things was what the Babis went through, and the Bab, and the ruthlessness of and the barbarity of all that killing. If that could exist and it could survive it, then it has to be of God. I used to teach the children. There was a funny little man in Israel many years ago, and he got up the nose of all the people there, and they got angry with him and they hung him on a cross, and that was the end of him. And yet, 2,000 years later, I'm still teaching you about Jesus. What did that man have that allowed his teachings to go on? And this is where you start to look and say, well, you know, this is out of this world. It's from another place. And the Holy Spirit is given to us to be used and to have faith in it. And that's all I've got to say. But I think that it's beautiful in the place that I am in, and I thank God.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you. That was very beautiful what you said.
Thank you very much, everyone. Is any more questions? I don't see, and it's nearly 9 o'clock.
Are you going to give a tea, coffee?
Yes, yeah, I wish we could have something together.
We have some cakes.
Oh, yeah, that would be nice.